What if everyone turned off the lights? Imagine, at one agreed-upon moment, all of humanity, from skyscraper apartments in New York to thatched huts in Africa, simultaneously turns off the lights. No electric bulbs, no glowing signs, no streetlights. A planet suddenly covered in darkness, not because of a power outage, but because people made a conscious choice. It may sound like a mysterious ritual, but if it truly happened, the world would witness an unprecedented event. Billions of people synchronizing a single action in one moment. Would anything actually happen, or would it simply be a minute of darkness before everything returns to normal? The answer might surprise you. That small act wouldn't just cause an immediate shock to the power grid, but could also leave a broad impact on the environment, social psychology, and the way humanity reflects on itself, through the light of darkness. When everyone on the planet turns off the lights in a single moment, the first thing that happens won't be darkness. It will be a sudden, unprecedented drop in global electricity consumption. In the first few seconds, national power grids would record the instant disappearance of tens or even hundreds of gigawatts of electricity use. Just imagine, a typical LED bulb uses about 10 watts. If 1 billion people turn off their lights, that single act would cut 10,000 megawatts, equivalent to the output of about 10 full-capacity nuclear reactors. And if we include air conditioners, televisions, billboards, and streetlights, the number could be many times greater. In developed countries, where most lighting systems, transportation, and public infrastructure run on electricity, this would be the first time in modern history that the grid experiences a coordinated power drop, not from an incident or outage, but from a voluntary human decision. This phenomenon would be the opposite of peak hours, when millions of people turn on lights, cook, and use appliances at the same time. Instead of increasing output, power plants would have to deal with a sudden energy surplus, a challenge never before seen on a global scale. The technical consequences would not be minor. Modern power grids are designed to maintain a balance between supply and demand, with accuracy down to the percent. When demand drops rapidly and supply doesn't adjust in time, voltage can spike, which may damage sensitive electrical equipment or destabilize the system. In some areas, if stabilizing measures aren't deployed quickly enough, temporary local blackouts could occur. However, this is exactly why a global lights-off event, if organized properly, could become a real-world test for the capacity of the world's electrical grids. Energy control centers would have a rare chance to observe how the system responds to major fluctuations in a short time, thus improving readiness for real crises like natural disasters, cyber attacks, or energy emergencies. Moreover, this temporary drop in electricity use, if calculated carefully, could save thousands of tons of fossil fuel in just a few minutes. In countries that rely on coal or gas for electricity, turning off millions of devices at once would reduce the load on power plants, cutting CO2 emissions and other harmful pollutants released into the air. Turning off the lights isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a technical test, a psychological lever, and a powerful environmental push, all in a few minutes of silence. And most importantly, it shows that if humanity can come together just to switch off a light, then we can also unite to transform the energy system in a more sustainable direction. When billions of people on Earth turn off the lights together in a single moment, it's not just light that disappears, but the hot breath of power plants softens. It may only last a few minutes, but its effect on the atmosphere is real, visible, and immediate. In today's electricity system, most energy doesn't come from clean sources like wind or solar. On the contrary, in many countries, especially developing economies, electricity still mainly comes from coal, oil, and natural gas. These sources, while stable, emit large amounts of greenhouse gases, especially CO2, NOx, and SO2, the main contributors to global warming, acid rain, and air pollution. Now imagine, in a global lights-off event lasting only 10 minutes, if 1 billion 10-watt LED bulbs are turned off, we could reduce about 10,000 megawatts, equal to the output of about 10 medium-sized power plants. In just a few minutes, Coal plants would burn less fuel, turbines would slow down, and less fuel burned means fewer emissions. Not just light bulbs, but air conditioners, ventilators, advertising lights, signs, and countless other household devices would also temporarily shut down. This overall drop in demand, though brief, would allow control centers to cut back output at fossil fuel power plants, creating a rare pause for the planet's atmosphere. The numbers might surprise you. According to the International Energy Agency, IEA, on average, 1 megawatt of electricity generated from coal emits around 1,000 kilojoules of CO2 per hour. That means if 10,000 megawatts are cut for just 10 minutes, the world could avoid releasing over 150,000 tons of CO2, an amount equivalent to the annual emissions of tens of thousands of cars. Additionally, a large-scale drop in electricity consumption can help reduce fine particulate pollution, PM 2.5, tiny particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and cause serious respiratory and cardiovascular problems, especially in densely populated cities. In a world where millions of people die prematurely every year from air pollution, even 10 minutes of easier breathing is no small gift. However, the most important thing isn't just the numbers. This collective action sends a powerful message. We can make a difference, even with the smallest gestures. And if we do this every year, or even turn it into a daily habit, like switching off lights when leaving a room, or turning down the air conditioning when it's not needed, then those minutes of darkness could become a light for a greener future. In a world that's heating up by the day and by the hour, sometimes choosing to switch off a small part of our comfort is also a way to switch on our responsibility to the planet we all share. In a world where people live faster and faster, constantly surrounded by screens, noise, and artificial light, voluntarily turning off the lights together is not just a technical act. It becomes a moment of profound spiritual weight. It's like a pause in civilization, giving us a chance to step back, look inward, and listen to the voice of a planet that is running out of breath. A small action, like turning off a light, might seem simple, but if done on a global scale, it could become the most powerful symbol of human connection the world has ever seen. In that darkness, there are no borders between rich and poor nations, no difference between New York and Nairobi, just people sharing a space, a planet, and a choice. The psychological effect comes from contrast. We live in an age of 24/7 light, of limitless convenience, of cities that never sleep. Suddenly, in that one moment, the lights go out, and a sky full of stars appears in places where people haven't seen the Milky Way for decades. A hush settles in. No more humming air conditioners, no more blinding digital ads. It makes people, wherever they are, feel small and awake. Turning off the lights won't save the Earth overnight, but it creates a pause where we can become aware of how much we rely on electricity, on technology, and on comforts we assume are permanent. That moment opens the door to conversation, in families, communities, and society. Adults explain to children why it's important to save energy. Neighbors ask each other, "Did you turn off your lights last night?" On social media before the event, millions share their ideas, plans, and reasons for taking part. The event doesn't just create physical darkness, it sparks the light of collective awareness. This phenomenon has already been demonstrated through Earth Hour, a campaign launched in 2007 in Sydney, Australia. Within just a few years, it spread to more than 190 countries, with hundreds of millions of participants. Even though it lasts only 60 minutes each year, it has proven that people can unite when the goal is big enough and the message clear enough. If a global lights-off event were organized on a larger, more coordinated scale, perhaps quarterly or annually, it would no longer be just symbolic. It could become the foundation of a long-term movement where people relearn how to live simply, respect energy, and appreciate what is running out. And when billions of people pause together in a shared moment of darkness to reflect and connect, that darkness is no longer something to fear, but instead becomes the light that illuminates humanity's conscience. The idea of a world switching off the lights together as a symbol of solidarity, awakening, and sustainability carries deep beauty. But any collective action, especially on a global scale, comes with serious challenges in terms of technology, safety, and coordination. And if not well prepared, a well-intentioned gesture could unintentionally lead to unwanted consequences. The first concern is grid stability. Modern power systems, though robust, are built on one core principle: supply and demand must stay nearly perfectly balanced in real time. When millions or even billions of lighting and household devices are switched off at once, the sudden drop in electricity consumption can cause voltage levels to spike. If power plants, especially coal-fired or hydroelectric stations, don't adjust their output quickly enough, the surplus electricity can overload transmission lines, trigger circuit breakers, or even cause localized grid failures. On the other hand, if all devices are suddenly turned back on after just a few minutes, it can trigger a phenomenon known as an electrical shock, a sudden surge in demand that causes severe voltage drops, overloading transformers, or cutting off power in residential areas. This spike may last only moments, but it can affect sensitive electronics, such as data centers, hospitals, or industrial control systems. Then there are systems where lighting simply cannot be turned off due to safety concerns. In hospitals, lighting is not just a matter of convenience, it's often a matter of life and death, especially in operating rooms, intensive care units, or neonatal wards. At major transportation hubs like airports, seaports, and highways, sudden darkness can lead to accidents, confusion, or disruption of critical services. High-security areas, such as prisons, military zones, or hazardous industrial facilities, require continuous lighting for surveillance, control, and to ensure public safety. If these areas participate in a lights-off event without proper contingency lighting, the risk of incidents becomes very real. Another risk lies in psychological reactions in urban environments. When public lighting is suddenly reduced and there hasn't been sufficient prior communication, people may panic, mistaking the event for a major power outage, a cyber attack, or even a natural disaster. This could lead to crowding, accidents, or temporary social unrest, especially in densely populated cities where fear can spread faster than darkness. That's why any large-scale lights-off campaign must involve close coordination between energy authorities, healthcare providers, transportation systems, and security agencies. Clear guidelines must be established about which systems are essential and must be excluded from participation. At the same time, information must be widely distributed, transparent, easy to understand, and delivered at least several days in advance, so the public can be mentally prepared and know how to respond if something unusual happens. Turning off the lights for the sake of the environment is a noble gesture. But in our modern world, the safety and stability of critical infrastructure must always come first. Darkness should remain a symbol, not become a threat. Turning off the lights together isn't about going back to the Stone Age. We're not rejecting progress, denying comfort, or asking humanity to live in darkness. What we truly seek is a moment of awakening, a timely pause in a world overloaded with light, noise, and speed. A way to remind ourselves that humans are still capable of unity, and that unity, even if it lasts only a few minutes, can create a powerful global echo. If organized carefully, thoughtfully, and with inspiration, a global lights-off event could become not only a symbol of environmental awareness, but also one of the most powerful communication campaigns of the century, where people of all backgrounds, borders, religions, and languages take part in a simple act with profound impact. Imagine, instead of tired slogans, a global campaign illuminated by images, major cities falling into peaceful darkness, night skies shining clearer than ever, and children seeing the Milky Way for the first time without leaving the city. Social media, instead of being filled with arguments, unites around one shared message: one planet, one act, one hope. A global lights-off event could become a kind of inverted festival of light, where darkness is used as a tool to spark awareness. Art installations, musical performances, meditation sessions, storytelling events, or TED-style talks could all be held by candlelight or entirely in the dark, emphasizing a depth of experience that's rare in modern life. The chance to hear your own heartbeat in complete silence. From an educational standpoint, this campaign offers a golden opportunity to teach younger generations about energy, climate, and social responsibility. Schools could organize unplugged sessions where students put away their phones, skip the electricity, and instead talk, write by hand, or draw under lanterns, a grounding experience that helps them realize the world is not always convenient, and every drop of electricity has a cost. And if the campaign becomes regular, quarterly, annually, it will turn into a rhythmic reminder. We don't have to give up light, but we need to know when to switch it off. Not because the bulb is expensive, but because the planet is paying. With melting ice, burning forests, and cities slowly sinking beneath rising seas. Above all, what matters is the meaning behind the action. When people pause together, they begin to truly see one another, not through screens, but through presence. Not through data, but through feeling. Not to consume, but to connect. In a world divided by information overload, sometimes it is the darkness that holds the power to bring us back to the same side. And if that happens, if for one moment we come together without needing light, we may just illuminate a new era, one where people choose to slow down, to be kinder, and to live more deeply, with themselves, with each other, and with the planet we call home.